rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold of California, rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold of California. And there's fool's gold in rivers and sunlight through summer, or deep in that sunset through mists on the coast.
I'd like to welcome Amelia Hogan to Mostly Folk. And Amelia just uh, came out. Actually, it's tomorrow it's being released, right? Well, the day after tomorrow? April
Day
1st. When is
tomorrow.
that?
Yeah, that's day after tomorrow.
Okay, so April 1st, you're probably seeing this after it's been released. This is what the album looks like. Amelia Hogan. The name of the album is Burnished. And let's talk about you and how you got involved in the music business. Let's start from the beginning. Where are you originally from?
I'm from the Bay Area in California,
Okay.
uh, born at Stanford Hospital, and um, so I'm local to the central coast of California, especially.
Hmm. And tell me about your upbringing. What what led you into the music? Because the music you play is not it's unusual. Let's put it that way. And some of the instruments, I mean, you play something I've never heard of. We'll talk about that, but
Sure.
um, talk about how you grew up and became interested in music.
Well, I think I would have to credit my mother, Lisa Ashman. She's a songwriter, singer, as she likes to say. And she would bring her kids to these house parties, and she writes contemporary songs, and she's very good at it. Lives in Nashville, and the kids would be sort of in the house parties, wandering around, finding what else we liked. And I found the traditional singers in a circle, and they were always immigrants from Ireland and England and Scotland, and they just had a kind of quiet intensity about the way they delivered songs.
Hmm,
And I fell in love as like a baby. I just loved these songs that had been so well worn that they were like stones that had been sung by so many voices. They're smooth.
hmm.
Um, I just I loved everything about traditional songs and singers and singing, and so that's my start.
Okay. And so musically, where did you start with what instrument?
Singing. I would say that the first song I remember singing ever was Malvina Reynolds' Magic
Uh,
Penny. And I was probably about a year and a half or 2 years old. And I loved the message. I loved the emotional resonance of it. So I think that's a theme that I stick with today.
mm,
Um, I really like things to feel like there's some grain of truth for me in them. Um, so that's a big part of where I came to this from. I mean, there were big fancy named folk singers and, nationally televised people that I grew up listening to, but not as much in recordings. More so in person, more so just directly from the singer, the source. And they'd talk about the songs, they'd talk about where they came from and the history points that helped develop the context in which they were created. And I really liked that big storytelling element of these traditional songs.
mm. Who are some of your influences? What artists?
I would say growing up in the folk club of San Francisco Folk Music Club, um, Pete Seeger used to visit one of the house parties, used to visit Faith Petrick in her place on Clayton Street in San Francisco. And they were good friends for a long time, and I knew people who knew them personally. And I would say I got a big kick from the singers of like the 70s, 80s, 90s. I think Ewan McCall and Peggy Seeger were a big part. Um, I would say that Dolores Keane, though I didn't get to meet her, but I did hear recordings of her stuff. And I would say I loved Neve Parsons and I loved the Motown sound. Like those were all big parts of my upbringing. And I really loved, like, I remember Alison Krauss and Union Station made an
Oh,
album
yeah. Yeah.
and won a big award. And I was like, oh, yeah, I get why she got an award for this. This is amazing. This
Yeah.
just really sinks into something that she clearly feels when she's singing the songs. And I loved that.
That's so great. So those are all good influences for sure. In your biography, it says that you sing in the Irish music tradition of, is it pronounced Sean-nós, meaning old or old style? How do you say that? Is that how you say it?
Shan, yeah, Shan Nos, which means old
Sean-nós.
style. And typically it's a single melodic line and it's a singer and they're sort of leaving the room. It's like the song is alive. And when you talk about it, they say a song for us, right? And it involves a kind of intense listening conversation or partnership with the
Mm,
room that it's shared in. Um, it's a very close listening, highly ornamented style of singing, very frequently in the Irish language. I'm not fluent, but I do my best with some of the information I do have. Um, and I just got back from a trip visiting some of the masters of this tradition in the north of the very tippy north of Ireland just yesterday,
really?
um, up in Inishowen, the Inishowen Peninsula in Donegal. And they have an amazing sort of cultural hub of people who love and do this kind of singing and love the history and the tradition and the scholarship in finding new things out about each song. Um, and I didn't know that's what I was doing when I first started getting into singing songs that I have fallen in love with myself. Um, I didn't know that that single a cappella melody line by a singer that is so carefully delivered is very much emblematic of that tradition until I started talking with other people who had learned songs in this very old way of an oral tradition of passing them from one person to the next instead of through recordings. I mean, maybe recordings in addition now, but that's what makes it feel old is that it can change every time you listen to it.
Come, Irishmen all, who hear my song, your fate is a mournful tale. When your rents are behind, and you're being taxed blind, and your crops have grown sickly and failed, you'll abandon your lands, and you'll wash your hands of all that has come before, and you'll take to the sea, to a new country, far from the green shamrock shore. From Derry Quay we sailed away on the 23rd of May. We were boarded by a pleasant crew bound for America. gallons or more, in case we'd run short on the way to New York, far from the green shamrock shore. So fare thee well, sweet Eliza dear, and likewise to Derry town, and twice farewell to me comrade boys who dwell on that sainted ground. If fortune should ever favor me, or I to have money in store, I'll come back and I'll wed the wee lassie I left on Paddy's green shamrock shore. Well, we say in 3 days we were all seasick, not a man on board was free. We were each of us taken unto our bunks, and with no one to pity poor me. No father dear, no mother kind, to hold my poor head when 'twas sore, which made me think more on the lassie I left on Paddy's green shamrock shore. So fare thee well, sweet Eliza dear, and likewise in Derry town, and twice farewell to me comrade boys who dwell on that sainted ground. If fortune should ever favor me, or I to have money in store, I'll come back and I'll wed the wee lassie I left on Paddy's green shamrock shore. We finally reached the other side in 23 days. We were taken as passengers by a man and led round in 6 different ways. Then we each of us drank a parting glass, in case we should never meet more. And we drank a health to old Ireland and Paddy's green shamrock shore. So fare thee well, sweet Eliza dear, and likewise to Derry town, and twice farewell to me comrade boys who dwell on that sainted ground. If fortune should ever favor me, or I to have money in store, I'll come back and I'll wed the wee lassie I left on Paddy's green shamrock shore.
Interesting. And the instrument, tell me about that. The 22 string lap harp.
Sure.
What on earth is that? I've never heard of this.
It's
Is it
about
like adults? I mean, an auto harp, or I guess so, right?
it's a small harp. I would say it's not
Yeah.
like the big 88 string or whatever for
Okay.
symphonies. And it's kind of the origins of that bigger concert harp sort of thing. It would be carried by a person from town to town, or a bard would go from city center or hub, community hub, one to the next, and they would carry their little harps, little-ish harps. So 22 strings are like a piano turned on its side. So it's
Oh,
like, and you've got
okay.
little sharping levers so you can play in more than just one key. Um, I can flip the levers in the middle of a song if I wanted, but it's much harder because then you'd have to retune the whole thing, which is
Okay.
a little challenging. Um, and I love it. It's been my buddy for when I'm performing at shows solo. Um, I'm always gonna be excited and more excited for being able to work with an accompanist. Um, someone I've worked with before, and we really just have a great rapport and conversational approach. But in a pinch, I love playing my little Welsh lap harp, little 22 stringer, and it's cute.
So let's talk about the album. The album, once again, is titled Burnished, and it's coming out on April. It came out on April 1st because this interview won't be aired until after April 1st. Uh, but Amelia Hogan, by the way, what is your website, Amelia?
Oh, it's ameliahogan.com.
Very
Oh,
simple.
yeah.
I like it. I like the simple ones. AmeliaHogan.com. And Amelia has lots and lots of information there about her and her music. And now there's something that struck me when I went to your website. You're quite an artist. And a lot of her paintings are there also. Tell me a little bit about that.
I think I have two big loves in my life, and one is visual art. My very earliest memory, like as a baby, my dad used to say, um, was of looking up at my grandmother's, my father's mother's refrigerator and seeing these wooden painted ladybug refrigerator magnets that had these colors that were just so vibrant. And as a like very small child, I was like, I just love Georgia O'Keeffe paintings and things. I just like, if I could swim in color, I totally would. Um, and I think my approach in terms of paintings is a sort of impressionist, fairly loose style. And so that's what I have my undergrad degree in is fine arts and painting and book arts and visual things. Um, and I love painting subjects that have kind of a lifey feel to them. So that's part of the retention of the looser style, I would say.
Yeah, and I love your art. I really do. So I encourage folks who are uh, listening to check out Amelia's website and check out her, in addition to her music, check out her gallery, which has lots of these paintings. So let's talk about the album. The album is was recorded. How did it all come about?
I started with a concept of like after last year's In a Show and Traditional Singers Conference and Retreat, I came back really moved by how it felt to be hearing all these songs that were so specific to place and that were every single person in that room knew with their whole being that they had an ongoing relationship with the rivers of this specific real rooted place and a sense of being of that place and not just um like this land is mine is a very American way of thinking about landscape. And I think there are older traditions that are more like I am of this place rather than the other way around.
Rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold of California. Rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold of California. And there's fool's gold in rivers and sunlight through summer, It's the air we are breathing in, the warm on our shoulders. It's wind we can't capture, feeling gold in our bones. In autumn, when winds change, the monarchs come homeward, and seabirds are resting. They're feathered in gold. They're rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold. They're rolling in the gold of California. They're rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold. They're rolling in the gold of California. If I could impart one thing, my love, there's one thing to you I'd bring. It's that there's gold in these hills we're in, my love, and not held in a gold medal thing. Made up of sunburn and scented tall giants, it's burnished wildflowers in niche gilded beam, and a tidal pool sparkle and salt waves I cherish. You'll have gold plenty and friends who will sing with you, rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold of California. They're rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold, rolling in the gold of California.
And I loved that sense. And I started thinking about how unrooted Americans feel from the spaces we occupy, how many songs are about traveling and finding your feet, and how Americans are so hungry for belonging to a landscape, this sort of third space of immigrants, right? We're not Irish and we're not Indigenous Americans necessarily. We're sort of the children or descendants of a diaspora of some place, is for a lot of people. I started out thinking, I'll make it Unsafe Passage. And then I had to change the name of the working title of the project because it kept triggering people's spam filters. Like the word unsafe kept messing people up a little bit. And they couldn't see messages related to the album or the Kickstarter launch or anything of the sort. And so I plucked a word from the song that I composed, that I wrote, called burnished, or the word is burnished, which is to shine something up and polish it to make it gleam.
Mhm.
And that was in reference to California poppies. And on my father's side, there are more recent immigrants from Ireland. But on my mother's side, I'm 4 generations Californian. And I was like, but how do Californians refer to the landscape and the being in this land of plenty and gold, golden hills of California, right? And the gold people came out here looking for. And I was like, that feeling of belonging, of knowing the place inside and out, of feeling like it's shaped me. So I
Mm.
chose songs that I feel and have felt some ongoing connection to or relationship with.
Amelia Hogan. Her website is ameliahogan.com. So check it out. There's lots of things about Amelia as well as her art, which you really have to take a look at. In addition to her music, and people can purchase the album through Amelia's website. That's always the best way to go. And there you have it. So, Amelia, thank you so much for being with me today. And maybe one of these days we'll get to meet.
I would love that, Artie. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for hosting this great program and lifting up independent folk artists and really helping spread the word about people who just really love folk music.
That's so good. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day. Your day's a little going on a little longer than mine.
Yeah.
But there you have it. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
I know dark clouds will gather around me. I know my way is rough and steep, yet beauteous fields lie just